Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah and today is the 1st of October. I am so excited for the autumn and the spooky season to begin, so I thought I'd start filming a reading vlog where I go through basically all the witchy books on my TBR. I'm in a real witchy mood, that's what I want to read at the moment. So I'm going to go through all the witchy books on my TBR and just basically try and read as many of them as I can throughout October. I don't know if this vlog will span the whole month or whether I'll just do like a week or so, but it's going to be fun to read some more seasonal books and just get ready to get cozy on a dark, cold evening. So I've actually started reading one book already. I'm listening to the audiobook of The Witching Hour by Anne Rice. This isn't necessarily a book that I would normally pick up. It's very big. I think it's over 1,000 pages, and it's just not the kind of thing that I generally would read. It's very much like a witchy paranormal novel of its time. It was published in 1990 and I think the series sort of spanned throughout the 1990s, and I think just you can kind of tell just from like the aesthetic of it and just tonally, it's just very 90s. And the reason that I want to read this is because I'm taking part in the Hurt Kid challenge, and one of the prompts for that was to read a book that was a bestseller in the year that you were born. And I was born a long time ago. I was born in 1990, and this is the only one really that kind of caught my eye. There's one of the books in the Clan of the Cave Bear series, and I have read the first book in that series, but I'm not really that interested in continuing it. And I think there's some Stephen King that I'm not really that into, but generally just like not the best selection in terms of like my reading taste. So I thought I'd try The Witching Hour. I do really want to read Interview with the Vampire, but that came out a long time before I was born. So yeah, I thought I'd try The Witching Hour. It's like I said, a very long book, and I haven't listened to much of it. I've listened to maybe about an hour on audio, and we haven't progressed much with the story at all. I mean, a lot has happened, but like in terms of like this whole sort of like very grand intricate plot, we're not very far through. Basically we're set in, I don't know when it's set. It's not set in the 90s, I don't think. I think it's set a little bit sooner, maybe like the 60s, 70s. And we're following, at the start of the novel, an unnamed doctor who is sort of sent to look after an elderly woman who is just being kept sort of bedbound and doesn't speak and doesn't seem to really know what's going on around her, and she's being given a very high dose of sedatives, and he doesn't really agree with what is happening to her, and he's just like, have we tried not doing that? And everyone's just like, no, absolutely do not do that. She needs to be kept calm. And so he just kind of goes along with it because that's his job. And then he keeps seeing this mysterious man appearing, and every time he tries to give this woman her injection to give her the sedative, something happens with the needle, like it'll fall out of his hand or it will break, and he just becomes very freaked out by this. He's just like, what on earth is happening? That man does not want me to give that woman her sedative. And he sort of from there is no longer caring for her because of all these like weird things that have been happening. And he's telling his story to a journalist who says, yeah, I have experience with horror stories similar to yours, and I know the family that you're talking about, and you're not the only one who's seen this mysterious man. And from there we flash to a man called Michael who lives in San Francisco, and he one day drowns but comes back to life again. And when he comes back to life, he has sort of like the ability to, like, when he touches things, like people appear, like he can hear things, I think, related to those objects and sort of tell stories about them, but everyone's just kind of like, he's lost it, he's like not with it at all, and he sort of has descended into alcoholism from there. And that's as far really as I've got. The thing that's connecting them is this, when the doctor visits the house in New Orleans where the woman is being sedated, there's obviously like that house is like a major presence, and Michael knows this house and has seen this figure in his past because he's from New Orleans and then has moved to San Francisco in his later life, and that's all I know about this book so far. And it's interesting enough. I really like the setting of like the American South and like that sort of oppressively warm horror. I'm really enjoying that. I'm not sure if it's a book that I will finish because it's so long and I haven't given it enough of a chance to know if it's actually going to be something that I like, but I'm really excited to read it, and I think it's the perfect time of year to get stuck into such a big tome of a book. And I'm hoping it's a little bit spooky at the moment. It's not necessarily scary. I'm hoping that the sort of scary stakes will be upped as we progress. Hello, I'm back. I've read some witchy books. I'm fully in the autumn spirit, and yeah, let me chat to you about them. So the first book I've finished is Witch Hat Atelier Volume 1. This is by Kamomi Shirahama, and this is translated from Japanese by Stephen Kohler. I adored this book. This was just everything for me, everything I want in a book. It is a manga, I think probably my first ever manga, I'm not entirely sure, but I tend to I like reading sort of, I know graphic novels and manga are like different, but like I tend to kind of like reading graphic novels, but I tend to not really enjoy them as much usually as like a written novel. But this was just such an easy 5-star for me. The illustrations were phenomenal, so much emotion and energy in them. It really felt like watching a Studio Ghibli film. That's the best way I can describe it. Just the pictures just seem so alive in a way that I haven't seen illustrated in like a graphic novel, or like I haven't read any manga, but I haven't seen it in a graphic novel before, and I just loved it so much. So this is following a young girl called Coco, and she has always dreamed of being a witch ever since a witch left her with like a book of spells and a pen when she was younger. And she's always been told, no, you can never be a witch because it's only a select few people that get to become witches, and magic is a very secret thing. And then one day in her small town, a group of magical travelling folk end up coming there, and some of the local children kind of destroy their vehicle that they use to get around. And so she meets this Master Quifrey, who is a witch, and he is just like, I will repair this for you, no problem. And so he takes his vehicle to be repaired, but says to Coco, you need to keep out anybody from the village because magic cannot be seen, and you need to just look away. And she's just like, oh, okay, I'll do that. And then some other kids from the village are just like, we're gonna have a look, and Coco wants to do that too. And she ends up being the only person who sees the magic being used, and then when she realizes what the magic is, tries to do it herself, and then sort of like shenanigans happen from there, and she's whisked off to this essentially magical school under Professor Quifrey, and just becomes his student. And it's all just about her learning to use magic and being told, yeah, actually you can be a witch, you're now the apprentice to this witch, and it's just so cute and cozy. The plot itself I didn't really like care about. It's fine, but it was just more like the illustrations and just the atmosphere that I was really enjoying. I love this so much, and I'm definitely going to go out and buy the other volumes in this series because I enjoyed it so much. So that was the only book that I've actually finished. I have been reading The Witching Hour by Anne Rice for a long time, I think about 7 hours now, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it a lot. To try and tell you the plot, it just seems kind of reductive because there isn't really a huge amount of plot. This is a huge book. Like I said, I've listened to 7 hours. I've got about 40 left, I think, and so far it's just been almost entirely exposition, and I'm loving that. I love it so much. The writing is really beautiful, and I really feel like I'm there. I think in particular the scenes in New Orleans where most of the book is set, I'm just finding it so interesting. I really feel transported there, and the description of it is so rich. The way the characters interact with each other, I think, is so realistic, and I'm just finding it very interesting, even though it's just entirely like the history of these characters and like their backstory. I'm not finding myself bored at all. Like I said, there's not really any plot that's happened. The way I can best describe it is there is an old house in New Orleans which has been run by a family of women for decades, I think since the 1800s, sometime around there, and they're the Mayfairs, and they're always a very rich, powerful family. They were like formerly plantation owners in the Caribbean, and something has always been a bit off about these women. There have been mysterious deaths in the family and just like unexplained happenings, and people, they respect this family, but also they're kind of terrified of them as well. And it all sort of comes to a head when the youngest of these Mayfair sisters, who are now occupying the house, Deirdre, she is committed to a sanatorium, and she becomes basically just like a husk of a person. So she just sits outside on the porch all day. She doesn't speak to anybody. She is basically just like not able to feed herself. She's just not able to do anything, basically. She's essentially like comatose, and we are learning a little bit more about how she ended up in this situation and just the history of this house and how it connects sort of the various different viewpoints that we have throughout the book. I don't really want to tell you much more than that because, like I said, I've listened to 7 hours and we're only just getting to Rowan Mayfair, who is one of the Mayfair witches, and I'm not going to tell you how she's connected because it's kind of explained to you throughout the novel. I don't think it's necessarily a spoiler to know how she is connected to them, but I think you will enjoy the book a little bit more if you're just sort of letting it, like, all this information sort of wash over you and not really knowing a huge amount going into it. So yeah, we're really not very far in. There's not much plot. There have been horror elements, definitely, and like I said, they are witches. It hasn't been explicitly said that they are witches, but like we kind of know that they are. It's just been a lot of like, it's creepy, I think, a little bit creepy and sinister rather than scary. And I would say the writing actually reminds me a lot of Donna Tartt. I think she probably took some inspiration from Anne Rice, because I think especially the scenes with Michael Curry. So Michael grew up in New Orleans and is sort of familiar with this house, moved away with his family to San Francisco when he was a teenager, and we find out very early on that he is drowned and presumed dead, but sort of is rescued and comes back to life, and then has this new ability where when he touches things, like objects, he can tell you like the history of that object and all the people that have interacted with this object. And he's trying to find out like the purpose, like why he has been endowed with this gift after a near-death experience where he should have died, or if not, had some sort of serious neurological issues from what happened, but he is absolutely fine. Like, doctors say it's a miracle that he's still alive, apart from he has this like new ability with his touch. So I think his sections in particular really were reminiscent to me of The Secret History, and I really enjoy that kind of writing style. I think you will know quite early on if this is for you, because if you're sort of getting on with the writing style and you're willing to persevere through lots of exposition and backstory, and something you can really get your teeth into, and you really sort of get lost in this family and all the various threads and all these different people who are connected to the family, I think you'll know quite soon if this is going to be a book for you, because like I said, there has been no plot so far really, and yeah, just enjoying it a lot. I think there are some, perhaps a little, I think there are some themes of incest that are going to occur, which I'm not entirely sure I'm ready for. There's also been like some discussions of abortion in this. I mean, it was written in 1990, and I wasn't really sure where Anne Rice was going with it, and it gave me the ick a little bit. I was just like, not sure about that, but other than that, I've been enjoying it a lot, and it's just the perfect read for this time of year, not just because it's about witches, but also because it's just one of those books where you just like can really get your teeth into it, and it's just like perfect for kind of being like a bit cozy and just being like, I'm gonna really like dedicate my time to this book, and I'm just really enjoying the ride so far. So it's a really good read for autumn, and yeah, I'll let you know how I get on with it, because there are still a lot of pages left for me to read / listen to, so my thoughts could change entirely, but for now I'm really enjoying it. I'm also reading, I didn't include this one in my TBR because I'd already started reading it before I filmed that TBR, but it's The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. This isn't explicitly a witchy book, but it's about spells, so I kind of was just like, well, that's kind of witchy, so we'll include it in this vlog. Unfortunately, I'm not really, it's not that I'm not enjoying it, I'm just finding this a bit of a slog. I am only 84 pages through this, and I started reading this at the end of September. It's now the 9th of October, and I'm just finding it a real slog. I do want to read it, like I want to pick it up, and I think I want to keep reading that and find out what's happening, but I just, like, when I read it I just find myself getting really distracted, and I don't know why it's not gripping me in the way that it should, because it has all the elements of a book that I would normally really love. So this is following a woman called Keela, and she has worked for a long time in the city in Elysium, in a library, sort of guarding spell books. Magic is something that is very much gatekept by like the rich and powerful, and it's something that's not available to everyone. There is a revolution, and sort of people decide to take magic back into their own hands. It's quite a violent revolution, and the whole city is basically set alight, including the Library of Elysium, and Keela and her sentient spider plant Kaz sort of flee from the city, saving as many spell books as they can. And they're not supposed to take these spellbooks from the library, but they think, oh, because it's a revolution now and like magic has sort of become sort of public property again, they think this should be okay, we'll do it. And they flee back to Keela's hometown where she grew up, and it's sort of a little village on the sea, and she goes back to her old cottage and is just trying to do it up and just trying to get by, trying to find a way to provide for herself and keep her and Kaz warm, and she just decides to set up a shop selling jam. That's as far as I've really got. She's kind of learning to interact with people. She's shut herself away in the library for years and years and hasn't had much interaction with people. She doesn't really like interacting with people that much, and she's quite abrupt, and short with people as well. Like there's this one man who keeps coming around to try and help her, and she's like quite rude to him. I mean, he's not respecting her boundaries either, but she is also maybe not dealing with it in the best way. There's a lot of friction between them, and I think maybe that is going to end up being a grumpy sunshine kind of romance, with the like traditional roles reversed, as normally it's like the man is grumpy and the woman is sunshine. I think maybe they will become a thing and it will be like a reverse grumpy sunshine. But yeah, I don't know, I like it, and I can't put my finger on what it is that's stopping me from enjoying it, but I'll keep going with it because, like I said, it's good. I like the writing. I like, there's a bit of social commentary in here. It's nothing like particularly profound, but it's good to see in a cozy fantasy book. And yeah, I do hope that I start to enjoy this more, because the premise just sounds so good and sounds exactly like something I would like to read, but yeah, I don't know. I'll see. Hello, it's been a little while since I updated, I can't lie, and I've been making some progress. I'm still reading The Witching Hour and I am really enjoying it. I've still got about 36 hours left, and even though like the reading experience itself isn't dragging, it does feel like this counter just isn't going down because there is still so much left to read. I've listened to about 12 hours already, so it's like I've read like a full book's worth and I'm not even like a quarter of the way through, I don't think. So I can't do maths, you might have noticed. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I have no updates on that really, other than it was written in 1990 and there's a sex scene in it, and like I know Anne Rice is like known for writing like erotica, but like, oh, it was not good. Not like necessarily problematic, just, you know, when like a sex scene just makes you like, it makes your toes curl and you're just like, huh? It was one of those, just like the opposite of erotic to me. There's one part where it's like, oh, she grabbed hold of his sex and it's just like, and he exploded inside her, and I was just like trying to keep the vomit inside me. Yeah, I'm not really into sex scenes in books. I find just like it being written down, there's just something so cringe about it, and just like a lot of the time it's like, oh, actually that's kind of gross. When you like actually write it, like it's fine like in films and stuff, but like when you like have a written description of it, just like a lot of the time it just makes you go like, ooh. And yeah, I don't think that was the intention. I think we were supposed to find that sex scene sexy, and it was anything but. But overall, I'm really enjoying that book, but it's gonna be a while before I finish it. I only have like 24 days left, I think, and 36 hours left to listen. So yeah, I might have to send that back to the library and continue it at another point if it's not available once it goes back. But you know, I'm not forcing myself to get through it before it's due back, because like I said, I can just put a new hold on it and it will be fine. But yeah, I'm not gonna have an update on that because the end is not nigh. The end is still very far away. I unfortunately have an update for The Spell Shop as well by Sarah Beth Durst. I got to page 142 and I think I'm just going to DNF it. I'm really disappointed. I'm so sad. I think I would have DNF'd it sooner if I hadn't bought this. So this cost me £18 British for this hardback, and like I thought I was going to love it because I really loved Legends and Lattes, and it was like that kind of vibe, and just I'd seen it described as like if a cozy game was a book, and it is like that. Like I haven't been misled. I should love this book. It's like Legends and Lattes. It's like, I describe it as like the game Wildflowers, but I just can't get on with it. I don't really like the characters. Keela's very prickly, and I can see where it's going in terms of like a romance between her and like she behaves quite inappropriately in the sense that she's quite rude to people and doesn't have much social awareness, and then the love interest slash neighbour Laren is inappropriate in a different way, in that he doesn't respect her boundaries and just kind of like turns up unannounced, and like when he's in her house he just like helps himself to stuff, and they're just two people who behave in a way that's not sort of socially appropriate, but in different ways, and like you can just tell like it's heading towards a romance. The spider plant I thought was kind of funny. Like Kaz, is like a sentient spider plant, is Keela's assistant, but like I just don't care enough about the characters or the world. I'm really disappointed because, like I said, there's nothing really that I can criticise. It has decent writing, decent world building. I think there's quite interesting social commentary in here. I think I've mentioned before that it's talking a lot about how magic has just been sort of like withheld from the general population and just kind of used by elite figures, and now there's been some sort of revolution and magic is being brought back into like public ownership, and I thought that was really interesting, but ultimately I just am finding this too much of a slog. I think I'd seen people complain about Legends and Lattes, and I don't like to compare them too much, but like they're similar, so I'm going to just saying like I don't like coffee, and so I wasn't interested in this orc opening the coffee shop. And I feel like that with this, because the thing that Keela has opened is the spell shop. She's selling jam, and I think she's gonna expand to other things eventually, but like jam is the thing we're supposed to be excited about. Jam's fine, but I can't bring myself to get excited about a jam shop. It's just not for me. So I think that didn't help, because I was just like, oh, jam, great. We could have done anything here and we chose jam. Such a disappointment, because like I said, I don't really have anything to criticise, but I'm not enjoying it. The only reason I was carrying on was because I really expected to like it, and I paid a lot of money for this book, and I don't normally buy hardbacks in new release, but yeah, a big disappointment. But I think other people will like this a lot. If you like Legends and Lattes, there's sort of no reason why you wouldn't like this. I just couldn't bring myself to enjoy it. It might be to do with mood as well, and like the time that I'm reading it. It's maybe more of a summary book than a cozy autumnal book, and yeah, just like maybe I'm just not really in the mood for cozy fantasy at the moment, so I'll keep it on my shelves for a little bit, I think, maybe until like spring, summer next year, and if I'm still not feeling like I want to pick it up, then I'll just get rid and cut my losses on that one. I also started listening to the new CJ Cook book, The Book of Witching, and this came out just last week, and I needed a book that came out in October for one of the Her Kid prompts, which is to read a book that came out in like a particular month in that month, like for every month of the year. So I needed something that came out in October, and I was like, great, I love CJ Cook. I read pretty much I think there's 2 that I haven't read by her, like older ones. And I really enjoyed this one. Like I said, I listened to it on audio. I've listened to the last couple that she's brought out on audio, and I do like listening to the books. I like reading them too, but like I think they're always a good experience when they're read to you. This is very typical CJ Cook, I think. She's a very formulaic author, and I don't necessarily mean that as a criticism. It's just like you read one CJ Cook and they're all kind of similar but with different storylines and settings. I think she's really found her niche and she's good at writing that. So I think, you know, if it works, why would you change that? This one is, again, like previous books, it's a dual POV. We're following a woman called Alison in the late 16th century on Orkney, and she's living through a very turbulent time on Orkney anyway, because they're experiencing basically colonization. So you get they've had this way of life on Orkney for centuries. It's kind of caught between Scandinavia and Scotland at this point in history. It doesn't officially belong to either, and they've kind of adopted culture from both sides, but they've always done things in a very traditional way. So like property is just sort of handed down informally through generations, and you've got people coming from the mainland, from Scotland and England, who like rich earls and like figures of royalty who are seeking to exploit this, and just because there's no official record of who owns what, they just kind of claim it for themselves and are trying to rid Orkney of its like traditional culture. They're essentially starving people there because they're forcing them to adopt to this new way of life where they sort of control like the food of the island and the wealth and how it's distributed throughout the people. It's basically this genocidal regime that's sort of trying to stamp out the culture of Orkney. And Alison grew up in a family of witches, part of the Triskill, which is like a society of magic folk, I suppose. She renounced that and said she didn't want anything to do with it, moved to a different part of the island to live with her husband William, who also just isn't keen on like the magic aspect, and is just like keen to distance himself as much as possible from that. They have 2 children, and their children are kind of inducted into the Triskill, and Alison isn't particularly happy about that, partly because she knows it's quite dangerous. It's set just a few years after the North Berwick witch trials, so even though witch hunting hasn't come to Orkney yet, there's still kind of that like fear that that it might do. And one day Alison is approached by one of the earls and asked for a potion to help them kill somebody. She says no, and then sort of later finds herself, she has a knock at the door, and it's kind of the sheriff, I guess. I don't really know, I can't remember what their official title was, but they're just like, oh, we have recently executed a man on suspicion of being involved in a murder, and he said under torture that you gave him the potion to do this. And so they sort of bring her in and they're just like, we're trying you on suspicion of witchcraft, and it's just obviously an awful ordeal from there. And then you have the present timeline in May 2024, following a woman called Clem and her daughter Erin. So Erin goes on a hiking holiday to Orkney with her boyfriend and one of her friends, and she is found very severely burned and injured. Her boyfriend has died, succumbed to his burns, and her friend is missing. So Erin is taken back to Glasgow to hospital, and when she comes around from her coma, she refuses to answer to Erin and is just like, I am Nyx. And her mother Clem is trying to figure out why this is. Erin sort of suspected of being involved in the death of Arlo, and is suspected of murdering her friend Senna as well. So Clem is just like trying to prove that she didn't do it. And so this like journey finds her going to Orkney and just sort of realizing that maybe like an ancient curse on Orkney is related to what is going on in the present day. And obviously the two timelines collide. People get like all up in each other's timelines, and it sounds very complicated. It's not, but obviously Erin and Alison are connected in some way, and we just are exploring what that is in this book. And yeah, it's really good. It was really well written. I think the plot was a lot tighter than some of her previous books. I really like the way she writes characters. There's obviously like a feminist lean to it, as with all of CJ Cook's book, and like an exploration of female trauma. There is discussion of cults. Yeah, it's a really good time, and I would definitely recommend it. I think particularly if you like CJ Cook already, like you'll definitely like this. And if you're new to CJ Cook, I think this is probably a good place to start, because I think it's the one I've enjoyed the most so far of all her books. I think I've given all of them 4 stars so far, apart from The Nesting, which I really didn't like. But I think this is probably the one that's technically the best as well. Yeah, I just think it's a really good place to start. And I think I'm gonna end the vlog here. I'm still listening to a novella called The Hedge Witch by Carrie Thomas, which I started a while ago and I haven't gone back to it. That's more of a summary read, but I'm enjoying it. It like has a Welsh setting which appeals to me. But yeah, I'm not going to finish that anytime soon. I don't think. I'm prioritising the witching hour to try and get that finished before it needs to go back to the library. So yeah, I'm going to end the vlog here. Thank you very much for watching. If you made it this far, maybe leave like the crystal ball emoji, or like a bat or a cat, or just the moon, something kind of witchy, for the witchy theme of the vlog. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in another one. Bye.